person who's been forced to leave their country because of human rights abuses or because of war, usually the first step that would be taken, and this is something extremely human, when you realize that your life is at risk, the first thing you will do is decide as a family, where do we flee to? Where do we go that we can access? Do we have the money to get to the country that we want to go to? Some people may choose to walk, and you see this in a lot of countries where war has broken out. People will just walk across the borders. Some people will cross through illegal means. They will pay a smuggler to cross the country. When they enter into a new country, usually the first step would be to find safety. You need to find a place where it's away, far away from the fighting, far away from anywhere that endangers you. And then you start the process of trying to get the status for yourself as a refugee. Because the Malaysian government doesn't conduct refugee protection work, UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, does that work. And so when a refugee enters into Malaysia, after they've settled down, they found their community, eventually, at some point or the other, they'll come and seek us. And the reason that they seek us is because they wish to state that they would like to make a claim to be a refugee. We will then meet them, we'll interview them, and then we'll determine through their interview whether or not they have a valid claim to be considered as a refugee. If they do, they are found to be in need of international protection, then we issue them a documentation that says so. And then their life as a refugee begins. In any refugee journey, the best long-term solution for refugees is really for them to be able to go home again. In fact, most refugees that we talk to will always say that they want to go back. Who doesn't? It's a very human feeling that after you've left your home, you've left family, you've left your belongings, you want to go back again. It's not always possible, because for as long as it's dangerous for them to go back, they can't go back. If there's war, if the human rights abuses are still going on, they can't go back. The refugees in Malaysia are what we call urban refugees. That means that there are no camps. People here live just like you and I would. They would find a place to rent, an apartment that they can afford, a flat. They will share the accommodation if they can't afford to pay the rental. By law, refugees are not allowed to work in Malaysia, but refugees do find ways to be self-reliant because you have to survive. A mother and a father must put food on the table. And so refugees will do that whether or not any organization comes in to help them. What UNHCR does is that we work with partners to, first of all, to protect refugees so that those who are defined as needing international protection will not be forcibly returned back to a country where they face danger. That's one of the first levels of protection that we give. And then we work with many civil society partners to look at welfare assistance for refugees. This is helping them in terms of education, for instance. Refugee children can't go to public schools, but they can set up their own learning centers and projects to help their own community. So we support them in that. I think there's always a fear that when foreigners enter into a country that the impact onto the country will always be negative. I think there's always a very visceral fear, a xenophobia, if you may. In Malaysia, the reality is that if you look at a population of the country that's about 30 million people, the refugee population is just a small fragment of that. It's only 150,000 people. The impact of such a small number is actually negligible in such a large country. This is a population of people who are being managed by UNHCR. We know who they are. We register them, we meet them, we talk to them often. We are able to discuss with them whenever there are any problems. It is a managed population. I think there is impact of populations like this being in a country. I don't think the impact is necessarily bad. The solution actually is to empower them, to allow them to find their own solutions and their own ways of coping. The best way to do that is to allow them to work legally in the country. The best way to manage refugee issues is really by regularizing them. With that, you can really see how even for the Malaysian government itself, will be able to better manage this population. And one of the simplest ways that anybody can help is, first of all, understand about the refugee issue and talk about it to each other. Talk about it to your friends. That's how you shift public perception. Impact can be done at the smallest, most simplest gestures, and I think that's really important for people to remember.